Just wanted to make a few observations about the hearing today. First of all, I want to thank these incredible public servants for their testimony, for their decades of experience. I think between the two of them, they have half a century to a century of experience in serving the country in war as well as in peace. I thought their testimony very powerful. Obviously, these are two very credible witnesses who speak from the heart and who have the greatest dedication not only to the United States but the deepest care for Ukraine, a deep and abiding interest in Ukraine and its future and its prospects. The portrait that I think their testimony paints is one of an irregular channel that ran from the President through Mick Mulvaney, Ambassador Sondland, Ambassador Volker, on down to Rudy Giuliani, in which the President sought to advance his political and personal interests at the expense of United States national security. And the President did that by pressing this vulnerable ally to get involved in the next presidential election in a way that the President thought would advance his re-election prospects. Did so by inviting Zelensky to do these political investigations, and more than that, did so by conditioning a White House meeting as well as ultimately hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid needed by this ally. Now, a couple points on the White House meeting and on the military aid. This was a new and politically inexperienced president of Ukraine with a lot of promise, who ran a campaign based on ending the conflict in Ukraine with the Russians, but also fighting corruption. It was, I think, a euphoric time for Ukrainians to have this reformer as their president. It was important, as we heard today, that this new president could demonstrate to friend and foe alike, to both his own countrymen, but also to his adversary, the Russians, that he had a strong relationship with the President of the United States. A White House meeting is one of the best ways to demonstrate that. And so this is something Zelensky clearly wanted and came back to time after time, and his people came back time after time. When are we going to get that meeting? When are we going to schedule that meeting that you said we would get? And time again, the answer came back: we first want you to commit to these political investigations to help the President's re-election campaign, and we want you to do it publicly. And then we would learn, as they learned and as they testified, that not only was this meeting conditioned, but also this military aid at a time when Ukrainians were dying every week. And so we will hear other witnesses, I think, who will corroborate much of what you heard today. Today allowed you to hear from Ukraine, from Ambassador Taylor's perspective, and from the view from Washington, from Mr. Kent's perspective. Other witnesses will fill in some of the pieces before, after, and during. But we don't expect the facts are largely going to be contested. There wasn't much of an effort by the Republicans today to contest these facts. Ultimately, what we will need to decide, and what I hope members on both sides of the aisle in the House, and if necessary in the Senate, what I hope members will think about is, what do these facts mean for the future of our country? What do these facts mean in terms of what Americans should expect from a president of the United States? Are we prepared to say that asking a foreign nation now to intervene in our elections is something that is a perk of the office of the presidency? Are we prepared to say that conditioning taxpayer-funded military assistance to an ally that is fighting a fight in which we have a deep stake is also now a perk of the office of the presidency? Are we now going to say that other official acts can be conditioned on another country giving something of value to the President of the United States? Is just now going to be the new normal for the President of the United States? I don't think we can allow that to be the new normal, acceptable in any way, shape, or form, or it will not only permit this president to seek other ways to bring about interference in our election, but it will invite future presidents to do the same. So we have some very difficult questions to answer at the end of the day about what these facts require us to do, but you will be hearing shortly from other witnesses who I think will corroborate much of what you heard today. And with that, I'm happy to answer a couple of questions.
Mr. Chairman, what did you make of the new information today that he presented to the committee that Mr. Taylor's aide overheard this phone call with Gordon Sondland and the president? And secondly, do you believe that Gordon Sondland, when he testified, was he truthful to your committee about his interactions with the president?
Well, first of all, in terms of the new information that Ambassador Taylor gave today about this conversation, the day after President Trump is on the phone with President Zelensky, in which one of Ambassador Taylor's staff is overhearing a conversation between Sondland and the president, and the president is speaking loud enough where he can hear part of the conversation, and the president is interested in whether the Ukrainians are going to do the investigation, and Sondland assures him that they are. This is obviously very important because there is an effort apparently to, by the president's allies, throw Sondland under the bus, throw Mulvaney under the bus, throw anybody under the bus in an effort to protect the president. But what this call indicates, as other testimony has likewise indicated, is that the instructions are coming from the president on down. Mick Mulvaney made that abundantly clear in his press conference, but this call also makes it abundantly clear, and I think Ambassador Taylor made it abundantly clear when Taylor testified that he wanted Sondland to push back on Trump's demand for these investigations. That is not asking Sondland to change his view, it's asking Sondland to help change the president's view, the president's demand. And so I think this witness is potentially very important. And of course, we are moving to depose this witness, and we have already scheduled their deposition. Yes.
Last question.
Look, I'm reserving judgment on the ultimate questions once the testimony is complete about what should follow from this, what are the consequences. It is certainly the case that the founders were deeply concerned that a president of the United States one day may be elected to office that would put his or her interests above the country, that would sacrifice our national security either to get a political or personal favor or owing to some foreign influence. So the facts that have come to light are very much what the founders had in mind, I think, when they provided a remedy. So we're going to have to make that decision. I'm not prejudging it. The only thing I'll say, because I didn't answer the second part of your question, Manu, in terms of Ambassador Sondland, one of the reasons why we want to do these hearings now in public, having done the deposition in closed session, is we want the American people to be able to evaluate the credibility of the witnesses for themselves, and I'm confident that they will. Thank you.
Why move to table the motion on the subpoena?